Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hey everybody, welcome to your Daily Detroit. It's Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. The cold is still here, but we have got a fresh, hot podcast for you. I'm Jared Stays. Joining me on the line, because frankly, it is too cold to make the trip into the studio today. Fletcher Sharp, how are you, sir?
It's cold, but it's winter in Michigan, so we know this.
Yeah, we don't normally double dip the sports, but A, we all know this is a big, important week. B, we've got new information we're going to talk about today because we are going to be facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here in Detroit. 9-8 team in the regular season, but you know what? They made the Eagles look bad, although I hate to say it, and I will say this because I am a Jason Kelce fan. I would have him on the show in a hot minute. I will fully admit my fandom of Jason Kelce. But, he got destroyed out there, and it's a real sad way for him to end his career. Looks like he's retiring. The Eagles collapsed at the end of the season. And I don't want to take it away from the Buccaneers. They capitalized, although it wasn't the prettiest of games to watch.
The Eagles beat the Buccaneers earlier in the season, and they did it by just dominating the run game, which is what we hope the Lions will be doing going forward. And this game, they just didn't seem to do that. And, there was a point where the Eagles were being talked about as, the number one seed over the 49ers because they just had a dominant attack and a great defense. And then they had one loss and another loss, and then they switched it up, and their defensive coordinator was none other than Matt Patricia, which everyone in Detroit was like, we know how that's going to go. And while the Eagles still won games, their defense was just horrible. And he had players like Darius Slay, who everyone loves, basically most of Georgia's defensive line from the past few years. He had great players who were in the Super Bowl last year. Mainly the same starters just about. He had them looking very pedestrian. And I could not understand how this team just collectively fell apart on the back end. And it's unfortunate. I mean, really not so for Detroit fans, because I think the Eagles be a much tougher matchup than the Buccaneers. I mean, people are fans of teams for sure, but also some people are fans of players. And the Eagles have a lot of likable people on their defense, not just the players that you know from here, but just a lot of people that you're like, that's a pretty cool story, or this guy's doing something. So to see them just fall apart the way they fell apart was just stunning. And to see it happen because Baker Mayfield was picking you apart, the same Baker Mayfield who's on his fourth team already in his very young career, it's insane. It was such a weird thing to see, and just it looked like they had Ben Johnson from the first half of the season on as their person, because earlier on with the Lions, Ben Johnson was making calls where it's we need to run the ball. He's like, all right, cool, let's throw it. Let's do a fancy triple handoff, no look pass, just run the ball, man. And it looks like Ben Johnson figured his stuff out where it's okay, we got to do these meat and potato type plays. And it just looks like the Eagles were just let's do some weird stuff. We know we should run the ball, but let's not do that. And, it did not work out for them, unfortunately. But yeah, the Buccaneers, currently 9-8, technically I guess 10-8 with the playoffs. They're a solid team. They have a pretty good defense. Not the best for run defense, but pretty solid up there. They will make tackles. They will make hits. Their offense kind of really depends on Baker Mayfield, really more so Mike Evans, who is having kind of a remontada type career, which is rebirth for those of a different tongue. 13 touchdowns led the NFL. So get in the red zone, big body, make sure you got someone who can jump with them because the ball is definitely going to him in the air. Chris Goodwin is another player to look out for on the offensive side. They got some weapons. But I mean, the Lions played them earlier, beat them 20-6, really ran them over. So you really want to think, are they going to stick with the run game? Are they going to try to get something fancy? Hopefully not. Stick with the run game. Let Goff do what he did this last game, which is really just make passes when he needed to make passes, not forcing anything. It's all right, what is it, 3rd and 5? Maybe let him take a toss or two. But don't make it so that he has to now throw the ball 40 odd times, because if that's the case, this game's going to get very one-sided very quickly, kind of like what happened with the Eagles.
Look, I am a Kool-Aid drinker. Put that IV right into my arm. But I see this line, 6 points from Vegas, and I agree with this 6-point line. I'm seeing some people be a little bit nuts about it. I feel good about this game, but I'm not feeling confident because This is the playoffs. The playoffs are hard. And look, I, more than anyone, along with everyone, want to see the Lions be one of the top 4 teams in the National Football League. But we still got to get through Tampa Bay. And I've seen some people throw out some crazy scores, crazy ideas. Anything's possible, but this is the playoffs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have gotten to be a better team since we played them last. I think we can beat them, but I don't want to go in there being like, oh yeah, this is easy, because that's when you fall.
I'm not saying because it's the Buccaneers instead of the Eagles, like, obviously, no, that it's an assured win. The Buccaneers are here on their own merit. They won against the Eagles, who people thought would kind of steamroll them. They found a way into the playoffs as one of the hotter teams near the end of the season. So, like, anything can happen. I mean, hell, the Pittsburgh Steelers won a Super Bowl as the lowest seed for like the first time ever, and I think they won their last game to become 500 to get into the playoffs such a long time ago. So, like, anything can happen. If you win a few games late in a season, you might catch fire, and all of a sudden, your team is one of the most on-fire teams going forward. We saw it happen with the Lions almost last year, where, like, they won a few games late and all of a sudden seemed to figure some stuff out, and they're like, well, maybe are they going to make the wild card? And it's like, they aren't, but, like, they are hitting their stride to make people actually afraid of this team. Really, the playoffs is less about, you know, what your regular season was, albeit that's for seeding, and way more about how you're playing at the end of the year. And again, like, the Eagles had a great record, but they fell apart near the end, and it showed come playoff time. The Buccaneers figured some stuff out late, and all of a sudden they're mowing teams down. And yeah, I mean, the spread is the spread. I think that the Lions sure up their defensive end, which I know they can't really do so much now, but, like, really do something with the corners. Like, figure something out to where when it's 3rd and 25, fans are not like, they're going to get a first down. Figure something out, some schematic, something that allows fans to feel some more at ease. I know the defensive line has not been getting that much pressure. They could probably get some more pressure on quarterbacks, but I know it has to be frustrating as hell as a defensive tackle or defensive end to get some pressure on the quarterback and watch him throw a ball into the air as you knock the quarterback down, to turn around and see their receiver pull the ball down over your DB. Like, that's frustrating.
What's going on with Cam Sutton, man? I'm going to pick on him right here. I don't want to pick on him because I try to keep it positive, but when I do see the issues, I keep seeing him getting beat and running after somebody down the field.
Yeah, I try to be more kind, I guess, to defensive backs, because it's one of the hardest positions in American football. I think defensive backs and offensive linemen are my 2 hardest, because if you make a mistake, it's someone else's problem. You make a mistake as a defensive back, a receiver's probably catching a ball over your head and going away. If offensive lineman misses a play, his quarterback or running back's getting drilled. So I am trying to be nice, because I understand, again, I'm not a professional football player. I can't cover these receivers. I'll probably do the same job he's doing on a lot of them. But, like, if he was at least in frame, I'd be like, okay, it's maybe 1 or 2 things. But, like, when you get blown off the line with, like, a few jab steps and they're gone, and, like, you are running full speed to get behind them to make a play, that's concerning. And I know some of it's scheme. I know some of it is just defensive scheme versus offensive scheme. But, like, it's becoming problematic, especially the Rams have a legitimate gripe, in my opinion. The last play that happened, Cam very obviously got a tug on back in Nakua's jersey. When that's the only way that you can make a play is to kind of, like, I don't want to say cheat, but, like, you know, manipulate the laws of the game to your favor.
Push the rules a bit. I guess I have very little grace around this because the Lions have gotten our own share of calls. It's kind of how the cookie crumbles. But yes, push the envelope a little bit. We'll say push the envelope.
But, like, when that's the only way you can kind of make plays to cover is to do that, like, you can't be the number 1 corner. Like, I know they're paying him number 1 corner money. Come on, like, you're making $11 million a year. I don't mean to, like, pocket check somebody, but you're making a fair sum of money per year to make these plays. You gotta make those plays, you know? Like, that's just essentially it. And the alternative is Jerry Jacobs, who's on IR, and Jerry Jacobs was originally the one getting burnt. So I'd much rather have Cam do it, because at least Cam has made some defensive plays. Going up against the number 1 receiver, you have to be way more locked in and sharp. Like, the New York Jets have Detroit native Sauce Gardner, who is a physical corner, puts his hands on you, maybe a little bit more than he should. But like, he's not getting blown by like that. He's not getting burnt over the top. If they're beating him in front. He's making the play. So the fact that the receivers think they can just go right around you and typically are, or maybe make a step and make you go somewhere else, it's a little concerning, especially when it's the number one receiver. If it was like, their second or third or their slot or something, sure, they're not the focal point of the offense. But if he's matched up with Mike Evans and Mike Evans looks at him and thinks, oh, this is food right here, that's a problem. Because they're going to go right back to him over and over and over. And they've shown that with him, again, having 13 touchdown receptions. It means if they get close to the red zone or close to the end zone, they're throwing the ball to Mike Evans. So hopefully whatever they can do to scheme it to make, Baker use more weapons, they do something to help that. Because if not, it's going to be another long day defensively.
Look, in reality, that game wasn't that great of a game to watch between the Bucs and the Eagles. There was a lot of sloppy play all around. It was a win, and I get that, but what do the Lions need to do to make sure that they take this one home and get into that NFC Championship game? What are 2 or 3 keys they've got to do?
Lock in defensively. That's really it. Avoid the mistakes. 3rd and 15, 3rd and more than 10 yards, you have to get off the field. You cannot give up a big completion, a big conversion, because that takes the wind out of your defense and gives the offense more hope. Secondly, they got to focus on the ground game, keep the ball on the ground. I know that the Buccaneers have made some moves to shore up their run game during the season. It won't be the same as the first time they played against them, but there's still some cracks there. You want to have the same game plan you had against the Rams. Keep the ball on the ground, keep the clock running, and when you get a chance to score. If you get a chance to score a touchdown, take the touchdown. Do not settle for field goals. If you get a chance where you can take a long field goal, that's a makeable one, take the field goal. But like, don't make the stupid forced plays where it's like, what is it? 4th and 6 from the 45. I'll go. Maybe don't do that. Maybe punt. Part of the reason why they won the game is because their punter had an amazing game, punting the ball and pinning the team deep, making them have to go far. And again, this is nothing against Baker Mayfield because he is leading a team into the playoffs. He's a starting quarterback for a team in the playoffs. He's over 4,000 yards this year. I still don't think he's very good. I thought he was very good in college. Thought he was very effective in college. I don't think he's the best professional quarterback, but he has a team in the playoffs, and they're in the playoffs because he played well. So you got to make sure that you keep an eye on him. He's more of a mobile quarterback, not like the most mobile, but he's an athletic, moving quarterback. And typically the Lions tend to struggle with quarterbacks who can throw on the move. I'm not really sure the reason why, but like every quarterback they've played against this year who's been a bit mobile, be able to move with the ball, has given him fits left and right. So if you give up almost 800 yards to Nick Mullins in 2 games, Matthew Stafford almost goes for 4. Let's try to keep Baker to like maybe just under 300 yards. If they can do that, under 300 yards should be a victory because the Lions' run defense is great. It's one of the best run defenses in the NFL. So they're not going to try to run up against you and hope to do something there. So if you can contain Baker, keep the ball on the ground, score when you need to score, and not give up the big plays, I see the Lions winning the game.
That would be amazing for this town. I want to talk about a couple of things that are not necessarily game related because they're getting in my craw, man. Like this fan reaction among some, not all, and it may just be a minority that's a little woohoo, but what is up with this like Stafford defense stuff? Like in our inbox, I've seen it around where it's like, we need to show Matt more respect or whatever. It's like, have we never, like, do we not know how to be fans? Do these folks don't know how to be fans? Where they're like, well, he gave so much sacrifice for so many years and we should respect. You know what? No, for one night, we don't. I'm sorry.
I hesitate to say this because I don't want to get yelled at, but it feels a lot like loser mentality to a degree, where it's like we have been down for so long. We want to stick with the people who've been here for us, even when they want to leave. Like when they want to leave, Matt wanted to leave. It wasn't like they were going to trade him and he was like, no, let me stay. He was like, yeah, I want to go. You know what? I'm good. Let me out of here. Let me off this ride. So like, while he did do a lot for the franchise, that was always weird to me. But like, hey, you know what? He did a lot for the team. We understand that. We appreciate that. If this had been a regular season game, like week 12 or something, or even, near the end when the games kind of mattered a little bit, I'd say, you know what? He deserves a video tribute. He comes out. People give him a nice little applause. The game starts, they go to booing him because he's the other team's quarterback. Game's over, they go to, cheering him. But this is the Lions' first home playoff game in some time. Most of the people who were at that stadium were alive either for one win or were not alive for the last one. So like, it mattered. So people are like, we need to respect him. The Lions have a number 9. It's Jamison Williams. The Lions have a starting quarterback. It's Jared Goff. He's no longer your quarterback. He's no longer your number 9. You want to wear his jersey to the game? I don't care. That's fine. But to get upset that someone's booing the opposing team's quarterback, Barry Sanders could unretire and say, I'm going to go play football. And I'd be like, hell yeah, Barry Sanders. But if he's like, I'm suited up for the Buccaneers this week, guess who's booing Barry Sanders? It doesn't matter what you've done for the program at this point, especially when it's in the middle of the game. I have people I play sports against who I love. They are good friends of mine. We've been to each other's weddings. We've hung out. We've cried together. We've had really emotional moments. We're bonded. But let us play against each other in a soccer game or a softball or whatever, and that matters, and they don't mean anything to me. The game is over. We will hug and do whatever. But during that 60, 50 minutes or whatever we're competing for, no, please, no. No, you're someone I don't know. And that's how they have to look at Matthew Stafford. And so to see so many people be like, I don't know why he got so much disrespect. Even Rams fans, which doesn't make any sense because they weren't out there saying nice things about Jared Goff. They were saying horrible things about him. But they're like, Matt deserves the respect. You don't respect the other guy who used to play with you. Why? Jared Goff has done a lot for your franchise. He got you guys to a Super Bowl. You didn't win it, but he got you there. Stafford came with a similar team and won you the Super Bowl, so I understand that. But throwing Goff away and saying that he's a bum when he actually was the reason you got there a few years before is crazy. So it feels really hypocritical. But from the Lions fan base, when I saw those Detroit Rams t-shirts.
Oh, I hated those.
I knew for a fact, I'm like, let the Lions play the Rams in an important game, and these same fans will be like, well, we got to show respect. No, you do not. There is no respect needed there. It's your opponent. Then you should respect every player who ever played in Detroit who's somewhere else. When they come back, I want the same adoration you're going to give Stafford. Otherwise, shut up. Seriously, shut up. It makes zero sense. You don't see fans of other teams cheering for their players to come back. And what if Stafford had won and stuck the dagger in the Lions season? Then what are you going to do? You're going to praise him? You're going to sit there and be like, wow, look at him. The team I can't. It shows you don't really care about the Lions. You're a Stafford fan.
That's some traumatic behavior right there. And I mean, look, Lions fans have been through a lot of trauma, but it's not okay. Like, sure, retirement. Absolutely honor the guy. Do I dislike the man personally? No, but the day of a little friendly rivalry, are we just like that out of flex with our muscles of like what sports rivalry looks like? Because I don't know. I remember Hockey Town. I remember those Stanley Cups. I remember the Bad Boys. And you know what? We had some swagger back then. And I want to see that swagger back in Detroit.
I said it before. If this was a different game, a regular season game, I'd understand. I mean, heck, Ben Wallace wanted to leave the Pistons. He wanted to go. So he ended up going to the Bulls for a bigger contract. His first game back at the time, I'm pretty sure it was in Auburn Hills. Yeah, his first game back in Auburn Hills. Some people booed, some people cheered, but he got the video montage. I'm like, you know what? He deserves that. Chauncey Billups came back with Denver. He deserves to be cheered and applauded. They deserve that. If it was a playoff game, though, I don't know about that. I don't think you get the adoration then because we're all keyed up because you want to. These games matter more than the regular season. These are the games that if you lose, you're done. So maybe the video montage doesn't go up then. So if he was expecting that truly coming in, which I don't think Matt was.
No, he wasn't. No way.
I would be surprised. I would truly be like, man, that's crazy. Like you actually thought these fans who you know pretty well, you know how nutty they can be about stuff. You thought they would abandon their fandom to have your back when you're trying to defeat the team that they all care about. Like, really? Like, that's... And I don't think that's what his thought process was. But there are people around him who thought that'd be the case, and that's weird to me.
There were people in our inbox who thought that would be the case.
And that's weird to me. Like, you don't... I hate to use this metaphor because some people are going to say, this doesn't mean anything to me. But if you're dating somebody and you guys break up and they go to somewhere where they're talking about how happy they are, that's great. But if they come back like, hey, what's up? You can be friendly. You can be nice. But they're like, we want to talk about. I do not want to talk about that. No, thank you, please. We're okay. Just please handshake. Hi. I have to go now, please. That's kind of what it was. Matthew wanted to leave and people want to skip that part. he wanted to leave. He was done putting in his years in Detroit, did not want to stick around for a rebuild, and he left. And no one faulted him for that. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, okay, you know what? Yeah, for sure. No, you left. That's totally fine. If I'm a fan of the Lions, then we have a number 9. It's Jamison Williams. But if I'm a fan of Matthew Stafford, then of course I'm like, all right, come back. Expecting a stadium full of mostly Lions fans to not boo the opposing quarterback is crazy. And I don't understand. Maybe if the Lions win a few more games consistently and like have some pretty good seasons, maybe this mindset will get washed out. Because it's really, for someone who's just played sports most of their life and played on different, it's so weird to see that. I can't comprehend anything else except, like you said, maybe some traumatic response to it. Because otherwise, I don't get it.
Before we go, overshadowed by everything is the news of a Pistons trade. Is this going to make a difference? What's the deal, and is this going to make a difference, Fletcher?
It helps because there's some spacing. They got Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala, who are both shooting big men, and they gave up mainly Marvin Bagley and Isaiah Livers. Isaiah Livers, who honestly should not be in the NBA, and that's not a slight against him, but like when I heard that the Pistons signed him, I was like, why? And I'm like, oh, he's gonna play a few minutes off the bench or something as like a 12th, 11th man. Then it's like, oh, he's a starting, small power. I'm like, what's happening? Why? Because even at Michigan, he was streaky at best, but like never consistent enough for like make people actually worry about him. And Marvin Bagley's who I thought they might keep between him and James Wiseman, but apparently James Wiseman has come on defensively near the end, says the metric nerds. So I don't know. The trade for Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala opens up the floor a little bit, gives them some more floor spacing, some people who can actually shoot a little bit. Unfortunately, Muscala and Gallinari are not having a great year shooting so far. I think part of that is the fact they're playing with Jordan Poole and Washington, who, for all intents and purposes, can be a black hole offensively. Again, paired with Kyle Kuzma, that's going to happen. It's why the Golden State Warriors let Jordan Poole go, because they did not feel like dealing with someone who wants to take all of the shots. Even watching the Pistons play against the Wizards, you see how Jordan Poole plays. I mean, heck, they've just recently beat the Wizards as a result because they have a literal walking black hole on the court. So I think it pays off. I don't think it's going to make them, all of a sudden make the playoffs or anything, but I think it'll help with the development of their young slashing players like Jaden Ivey, maybe Marcus Sasser to a degree. I mean, he's more of a shooter, but it allows him to have some more space because if you don't double on him, or if Cade Cunningham has the ball and he's able to cut to the hoop, he can have one person on him. If you double him, one of those guys might be open for an open shot. And you can put money on NBA players making open jump shots. Like, that's something you can say probably should happen. So it helps there. I don't think it's going to be like, the catalyst and what turns the team around. I think it's maybe like a start. Spacing's a start, but we'll see when they start hitting shots. We'll go from there.
Fletcher Sharp, looking forward to this weekend. I am pumped. There's events you and I are going to this week leading up to the NFL draft. We're going to share with people about that. It's a good sports week in Detroit. And sure, we're spending a little bit more time on the air than normal, but I think it's totally worth it. And I'm so glad to have your insights, man.
I'm glad for anyone who wants to hear anything I have to say about sports, because while I think what I'm saying is mostly right, obviously there are people who don't feel the same. So if enough people feel that they think I can make enough salient points to want to listen, I'll gladly take it.
And if you think Fletcher's wrong, 313-789-3211 or dailydetroit@gmail.com. With that, I am Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharp.
Thank you so much to engineer Randy behind the scenes for editing this episode. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.